10 years coming up this month, and I think I can get 3 questions out of her today about parenting. So I'm going to ask 3 questions for her. First question, are you ready? Mm-hmm. What do you think is the most difficult part of parenting? And it cannot be that I'm your husband. It has to be related to children.
Well, that's what parenting is, raising children, right?
You want to start over?
I think, no.
Okay, sorry. Real life right here, ladies and gentlemen.
I think the most difficult part of parenting is admitting when you're wrong.
Admitting when you're wrong. Give me an example. Okay. When have you been wrong as a parent?
So I've given my kids advice before of things to do, and then it hasn't turned out well. And I think that's tough because I personally think I know everything.
I don't agree with that. She does know everything.
No, he's lying.
So admitting when you're wrong, that can be tough. We get into power struggles a lot. You always have to think to yourself, is it worth the struggle? Like, you know what you're requesting. It's not that difficult. But if you continue to push the button, just be ready for where you could head. So admitting you're wrong, kind of moving on is important.
Yeah, I think also admitting that you don't know everything is tough because you're supposed to be your kid's everything, and you're supposed to, I always feel like I should have all the answers, and the fact is that I don't. And so, I think those are 2 hard things about parenting is really being, taking a look at yourself. Yeah. And that's harder than a lot of parts of life.
Yeah, I remember one of the early stories I had is I didn't even know, like the little sixlets, those little candies. My question is, well, how old does my kid have to be before he can have a candy like that? Are they going to choke on it? I mean, just little things like that are tough. But second question for you.
Yeah.
So I was a principal. I was very involved at work at night. We have a lot of parents that are watching this in that similar situation. From your point of view, what was it like and how difficult is it when a parent has a lot of commitments and isn't always around to help out?
So I think the most difficult part about your former job was that our schedules were never the same. I'm a pretty ritualistic person. I like to have a schedule. I like things on a calendar. And that your work commitments could change on a dime. So you could have a crisis at school and have to stay late, or you could have, a celebration at school and have to stay late, and it wouldn't necessarily be known to us. And so I think that's really tough, just all the unexpectedness of schedules with kids, and with families and with work, and all the different variables that could go into making a week kind of a difficult one. I think that was probably the hardest part. I have a little bit more predictable schedule, and I like that.
Yeah. And I would say from my perspective, when I became a principal, Lauren and I had the conversation because we knew that wasn't just something that I would be taking on more work. That falls directly upon the couple as well, that you both have to be committed to that, because otherwise there can be resentment towards having to take on more for the kids. And at times it probably even felt like her job wasn't as valued when that should never be the case. So talk to me a little bit about because Brittany Carter wanted to know, how are you such a successful business person and a successful mom? How do you find that balance?
I don't know that you ever strike the right balance. You just happen to hit it every once in a while. I don't know that there's a formula. But I definitely think that it has to do with having good friends and family that you can talk to about your day, having other adults in your life that understand you, that aren't necessarily your spouse even. Just creating relationships with people who you can empathize and sympathize with, and get through life together. Because I can't do this myself, and that's another hard thing to admit, that it's really tough to do things alone, or that you can't you know, do everything. And so having those friends and family in place that can help you out and you can help them out, I think that's how you get through it.
Yeah, and it's important for the perspective too, because I know a lot of great single parents, and I cannot even imagine what it would be like to raise kids. But just the support groups that you can have in place, like you said, if you have family in town, if you have friends, neighbors, our neighbors help out a lot with our kids, which is a blessing. But that's a huge key. So last thing I want from you is tell everyone your single most embarrassing parenting story.
If anybody I works with or works in the same area I do, I've told this one before at work, so I can definitely share this on the internet. Our kids had to take bedding when they were little to school so that they could take naps, and it consisted of a pillowcase with a sheet and a pillow and a blanket and a toy, you know, like a little lovey or whatever inside. And so the blanket that we used to send was super kind of like had a lot of static electricity. Yep. So one morning I was running late, grabbed it out, put it in the bag, blah, 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 blah. Dropped the kids off, or you dropped the kids off, I don't remember. So, Probably. But I picked up that day, and Brody looked at me, and he's like, right when I get there, his eyes are really big. He's really excited, and he goes, Mom, 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 come see what's in my backpack. And it was my underwear. because my underwear were stuck to his blanket. And he's like, Miss Betty told me these are your underwear. And Miss Betty was very nice about it. But I've thoroughly checked blankets since then to make sure that I'm not sending my underwear to school with my kids.
So any new parents out there, lesson learned from Lauren tonight. If you're doing laundry and sending something to a kid's preschool, let's check for underwear in there, because that obviously wasn't scarring to our kid. He was proud of it for some reason, but it can be embarrassing for parents.
He thought it was really funny, but it was definitely like not one of my proudest moments.
And I will quickly tell my parenting fail. This was, I think, kindergarten or maybe this year. Brody, they do a classroom reward with tickets, and I was helping him get ready for bed, and I had noticed that his socks, he had a big toe sticking out in his left foot, and he had a couple toes sticking out in his right foot. And I said, Brody, why are you wearing socks like that? And he's like, Dad, these are what I put on this morning. I said, okay. And he's like, and I cashed in all my tickets, so I didn't have to wear shoes at school today. And my mouth about hit the floor, and I did what every parent would do. You instantly pick up your phone, you take a picture, you send it to your spouse, and you say how embarrassing of a parenting job we did. I talked to the teacher about it, but sent him to school without socks. I mean, I think we threw them away rather quickly after that. But,
yeah, I think that was cool.
If you can't laugh about things you do as parents, you're not going to survive. So thank you, honey, for taking the time to talk to our viewers. I am heading to San Diego, where I will be with family, and I'm going to get my sister Jody on here. And if you don't know Jody, she's a hoot. So we will be touching base later. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.